Dan Hook and Evan Barker with Get Outdoors with Hook Outdoors, the podcast. And this morning we're going to dive into another fishing report. And when that all wraps up, we're going to kind of continue our conversation about fishing shad spawn because we are looking forward to getting by this cold weather and getting into spring. And we'll just jump right in here. Cave Run Lake sits at 730 feet, 730.4 feet above sea level right now. That is basically the normal summer pool, but we're actually about 6.4 feet above winter pool. We had a pretty good dose of rain and some snow here the last week or so, and it's raised the level pretty good. Water temps are running in the upper 30s for the most part. They'll vary a little bit from north end to south end, but usually not over a degree or two. Water clarity is reasonably clear on the north end here up around the dam in this main lake area. And basically the further south you go where you've had more run in, you're going to have more stained, more muddy type water. And not only that, coupled with the cold temperatures, backs of a lot of these creeks are iced over. I was up by Poppin' Rock the other day, and I noticed upstream from the Poppin' Rock ramp up North Fork there, from the bridge on up, it was iced over pretty good. The spillway right now is running at around 2,500 CFS, which, makes for pretty tough fishing other than maybe down at the corner there on the far side behind the hatchery in that little backwater there. Crappie are it's a normal cold weather pattern here. They're deep right now. There are a few people out fishing for them. I haven't really seen anybody the last couple of days, but a few days ago before the temperatures took a nosedive, there were people out, but now they were catching them pretty deep. They're real tight to timber. Live bait is just about the only thing that seems to be working for them. The main lake, the muskies, it's been a sucker bite if you can get them. There have been a few fish caught on some glide baits, but it's been fairly few and far between. It's mainly a live bait deal, at least for the time being anyway. Haven't really heard of any catfish on the main lake right now, but now you get down in the spillway up until they open it up when the flow was back down around 500 to 300 or something like that, and there wasn't a tremendous amount of current. There was good fishing there. There were good numbers of crappie being caught. There always is. And they were catching some decent catfish. And, the muskie, there was the occasional muskie being caught. And even on the other side of the dam there at Stony Cove, there's some locals that fish that pretty regular. And they do pretty good in that area, fishing those old weed beds that they have there. Yeah, and they were catching some occasional walleye in the spillway and that kind of thing. So it's been pretty good. Granted, it'll get better as we get deeper into spring and the water starts warming up. But I'm going to turn it over to Evan now, and he's going to give you what he can about the bass fishing here, or and talk about. We'll dive into the shad spawn and maybe even what the fishing's like at some other lakes. So Evan, let's hear what you got today.
Yeah, so this time of year, when you get into the December through February and even sometimes into early March, this wintertime fishing on Cave Run, it's really the toughest time of year. But the thing is, the same fish are still in the lake that there will be in April, May, and June, when the fishing's the best. All the fish are still going to be there, but they're just a little bit tougher to catch. So, right now, your best bet's going to be fishing out deep. You're going to be fishing brush piles, rock piles, things like that. Offshore, that's where I've been getting most of my bites, but if you don't have, depth finders or access to a boat or anything, and you can get down on the bank on Cave Run. There's several deep chunk rock banks. That's also a great place that the fish set up. A deeper, like maybe a channel swing bank. That's a really good place for them to set up. But your best baits right now is going to be your jigs, your shaky heads, Ned rigs, things like that. Anything slow. Those fish with the water temperature moving, down into the 30s. Those fish are really, really lethargic. They're slow. Their metabolism's slowed down, so they're not wanting to chase much, and, they're just going to be eating really slow. So, dragging a jig or a shaky head will more than likely get you more bites and even bigger bites than, say, throwing a crankbait and a jerkbait, while those baits can be really good. And to to kind of move on, when I think about these extremely cold temperatures and everything like that, and winter fishing, the first thing I think about is going to Cumberland, Dale Hollow, Laurel, Highland reservoirs like that, and fishing for smallmouth. And it's really getting into the best time of year to be down there. January and February is absolutely crazy down there on Cumberland, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And the fish down there, they're a little bit different. You're targeting more smallmouth than anything, and the smallmouth, they're more natured to cold water, I guess you could say. And even down there where Cumberland is like 63,000 acres of water, whereas Cave Run is only, I think it's 8,200 acres of
Mm-hmm.
water. So
Yes, sir.
it's
Mm-hmm.
more than six times the size of Cave Run, and it's a whole lot deeper. So the water temperature down there doesn't get as low. Like here at Cave Run, it's, I'd say now between 35, 36 in that ballpark. Whereas if
Right.
I was going to go down to Cumberland this morning, I would probably find 42 to 44 degree water.
Oh,
If I was
wow.
just guessing, I haven't been down there in a few weeks, but if
Uh,
I was just guessing, I'd say that's about the water temperature I would find.
yeah.
But even as the water temperature dips, down really low there, the smallmouth still eat like crazy. So, and honestly, the best pattern down there in the winter, the most known pattern is throwing a Spro rock crawler, or
Mm-hmm.
any kind of mid depth crankbait. You have a whole bunch of different ones. You have your Jenko CD7s, you can throw like a Spro Little John or something like that, the MD, things like that. Just
Right.
any kind of that mid range crankbait that gets
Mm-hmm.
down there between, I'd say, about 7 and 12 feet. That's the most well known pattern down there on Cumberland, and
Mm-hmm.
they eat it all year long. So
Right.
kind of move into the shad spawn now. We kind of dabbled into the shad spawn last week, and just kind of touch base with everybody who might not have listened or might not have watched last week. The shad spawn is when that water temperature hits around the 65-degree mark in the spring. So the bass, they're known to spawn between, they really start when the water temperature hits about 55, and they'll spawn all the way through really when it hits about 70 degrees. So they're basically spawning, from here on Cave Run specifically, spawning between about the first the first part of April, like the first weekend in April is when it really gets good, and all the way through the middle of May, you're still finding fish spawning. But towards the tail end of the bass spawn, when the water temperature starts hitting 65 to especially 70 degrees, is when the shad start spawning. And the shad, what they do is they migrate up shallow and they spawn at night. So they migrate up shallow in big groups, and they get around hard cover. Hard cover being like, like most of the time on Cave Run in the spring, there's, but like thousands of bushes in the water. So what they'll do is they'll migrate to the back of a flat, and they'll start beating around on bushes or any kind
Mm-hmm.
of hard cover they can find. And
Right.
what they're doing is they're all like a carp. The same thing they do is they get up there and they beat the eggs out of themselves. They get up there and knock off a hard cover. And even if we don't have bushes in the water when they're spawning, they'll still get out there and they'll get on rocks, stumps, or anything like that, and just any kind of hard cover they can find. Or if your lake has boat docks on it, Cave Run has pretty limited boat docks. There's probably 15 or something on the lake.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
guess
if you,
I guess excluding the marina.
yeah,
The
yeah,
marina is a really good place to go in the shad spawn, though. Get up there and throw top water. But
mm-hmm.
boat docks is another good pattern. Just any kind of hard cover that they can get up there and they can flick around. That's how you know that they're spawning, and you can see it with your own eyes. Uh, the key thing to get in your head in the shad spawn is you have to get there. If you want to get on a shad spawn bite,
Mm-hmm.
you have to get to the lake basically when it's pitch black dark, and you want to be fishing like as soon as you can see your hand in front of your face, because the shad spawn at night, like I mentioned earlier, but they'll spawn a little bit into the morning as well with the low light, until
Right.
you can find like shade lines and things like that throughout the day, and you might be able to find a few shad spawning. But the best thing is getting there bright and early when it's dark, and just getting up there when it's really dark, and you can still find those shad spawning from the previous night, and you can get up there and catch them.
That's really something that they're just biologically, I guess they're just set up that's when they go. The water has to be a certain temp, and even and they just spawn a certain time of the. Well, it's at night, but it's a certain hour of the clock is when they go, and rather than just like a bedding bass or something, you'll see them nesting in broad daylight and all that
Hmm.
kind of thing versus these shad. Um, does water clarity play a part in any of this? Like, are they more apt to spawn the clearer the water, or does muddy water slow them down, or does that really play a factor in it at all?
I haven't really found a big difference. Most of the time when I'm fishing a shad spawn, like on Cave Run, by the time the shad starts spawning, that springtime mud kind of starts clearing out, and
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing that more clear water. So most of the time when I fish it, I'm in clear water, and I've had really good success doing it. But
Right.
I would like to fish it in dirty water sometime, just to see if that would make any difference on like what I throw or what I see them doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd be kind of curious if they spawn as prolific in the muddy water as they do in the clear water, because you'll just see big groups of them, just invading the bushes and the junk along the shoreline. When they're spawning, I'd be curious to know if that was a thing or not. What colors? I mean, are you just sticking with natural colors? Of course, I guess water clarity there plays a part in that. But
Mhm.
as far as your type of lure and your color and that sort of thing, what are you looking for?
I just keep it really simple. When I'm fishing a shad spawn, I'll get to the lake in the morning and I'll have five rods out, and all five of them will have some form of white or white and silver or silver and black,
Hmm.
something like that, or a gray, any natural shad color bait. I'll have on the deck, and that's basically all I'll have because the shad spawn's it's an extremely good bite to get on because when you do find the shad spawning, the bass are going to be there with them. That's we're talking so much about the shad spawn and all that stuff, but the reason we're talking about it's being so good is when a group of bass sees a massive school of shad coming up on a shallow flat or something like that, or in the back of a creek, that's just a smorgasbord for them. So
Yeah.
it's just easy pickings. They get up there with the shad and they just eat the fire out of them.
Hmm.
So most of the baits that I throw, it's going to be uh, my favorite, I guess, is going to be a top water. Like a spook, like a Jenko flea bag. They make a really good spook. Throw it in white or chrome and black or anything like that, just to mimic a shad. A swim jig, a white swim jig's really good. You can put a swim bait trailer on it, or you can put like an ultra speed craw or something like that. Any kind of moving trailer. That way you fish it really fast, and you can move around the shallow
I
cover.
guess
And
I guess
it's
that would be a question for me. Are you when you're doing a shad spawn, and so you know the bass are there? Are you fishing more deliberate and slowing it down?
I have my trolling motor on 70 or 80 constant, and I'm covering as much water as I possibly can.
So no Ned
That's
rigs.
no Ned rigs, no jigs, nothing
Yeah.
like that. Unless I'm
Okay.
unless I'm fishing a swim jig, that's the only thing. But anything moving like that, a spinner bait's really good. Throwing a white or white and silver or anything like that, a big spinner bait.
What about a
And
buzz
I
bait?
guess going back into the muddy water thing, is a spinner bait would be I guess probably your best option as far as a shad spawn bait, because any of that, the blades and everything,
Sure.
displace a bunch of water, they have the flash and everything. So
Yeah.
if I was fishing a shad spawn in muddy water, that's 100% what I would pick up first. Would be like a big double Colorado or an Indiana Colorado combination, like a white and chartreuse spinner bait.
What about you were talking about top waters? Are you more into like the jerk bait, twitch bait type stuff, or do you? What about prop baits or blade baits? Be it a buzz bait or even a crankbait with a blade on it. Do you have any preference there, or what do you think about that?
A buzz bait's also an extremely good bait to throw in the shad spawn. I don't know if it's really directed to the shad spawn or not, but something I just kind of thought about when you brought that up was, what the way a buzzbait turns water up on top of on the surface of the water, that can
Hmm.
almost maybe look like a school of shad making a big commotion at the top of the water. It's maybe
Right.
honestly I don't even know what a buzzbait's supposed to look like, but Lord knows it catches them. It catches them.
Yeah.
It's a really good bait in that post spawn. Whenever that water hits about 65 through all the way until the water hits 55 in the fall.
Hmm.
Basically that whole 7 8 month stretch, I'm going to have a buzz bait on basically
Oh
all the
yeah.
time because it's just a big fish catching bait, and
And
it's
you think about it, it's basically the from the design to even the use of it. It's a pretty simple deal. It's basically a piece of bent wire with either a two, three, or a four blade prop on it, with a head and a hook and a skirt or a trailer or something along those lines. And there's no, like with spinner baits, there's different kinds of retrieves and different blade styles, and a lot of stuff goes into that. But I mean, a buzz bait's a pretty basic deal considering, how good a fish catcher it is. At least that's what I think,
yeah,
anyway.
a buzzbait's pretty simple. There's still some little like little tips and tricks and things that
Sure, yeah,
you can learn along the way. Like it's
yeah,
really simple though. You either basically fish it with a skirt or you fish it with like a buzz toad on the back
yeah.
of it. And I've kind of moved into I'm the guy that always has either a white or a black buzz toad on it. If the water's dirty, I'm gonna have a black buzz toad, but if the water's clear, even if it's a little bit stained, I'll still have the white on. But
Yeah.
I just keep it really simple like that.
Yeah, and
I'm
see
at a
that's
really long cast, and I mean, you have like a solid, just a consistent retrieve with it. But
mhm,
sometimes I'll give my rod a little pop, and it'll the buzz bait will a little bit and
right.
move around some, and I'll
See, and
start and stop and things like that.
that's the thing I think I like about a buzz bait. For one thing, I mean it's pretty basic. You get into a lot of baits, and there's so many colors and sizes and depths, like certain crankbaits and that sort of thing. A buzz bait's relatively simple. You've got maybe a couple of three different sizes, and that's that's pretty much it. You've got your colors, but you really don't have to get too carried away with that. Black, white, chartreuse, and white, and yeah, I mean that and then a choice of a trailer. It doesn't have to really get too involved. I mean, you could pack if you were a buzzbait person, about four or five lures, and you're fishing for the day.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
That's maybe even that's kind of what I like about it is how
yeah,
simple it is. It's still a big fish catcher. It's still you can cover a lot of water with it, and it's just a simple bait to fish. You can cover a lot of water. I mean, you can fish it. You can fish it really anywhere too. I've caught fish on Lake Cumberland suspended over 40 feet of water with a buzz bait.
mm.
And also, I've caught them on a lake, even on Cumberland, in the back of a creek where I can just about see their backs coming out of the water.
Well, talking about like Lake Cumberland and talking about these shad and so forth. Do you think where they pull Lake Cumberland was a decent lake years ago, but nothing like it is now. And do you think where they pulled the lake so far down to repair the dam and all that brush and stuff sprouted, all that buckbrush and all that, and now they've got the water back up to normal pool? Um, do you think that by having that increase in the amount of brush and everything that it led to better shad spawns? Because I know, like here at Cave Run, since the grass has come along, the fishing has improved here, and I just think there's just more cover and such. Because you take Lord, years ago before the grass was here, gosh, shad were you just didn't see that many of them, not like you do now.
Yeah, Lake Cumberland. I mean, it would have had to have helped it because without the buckbrush, I mean, I can probably count like on both hands the amount of stumps and stuff like that's in Cumberland, and it's 100 miles long, and there's very limited stumps and things like that in it. So
Mm-hmm.
the buckbrush coming up and growing, it would have had to help because it's just without the buckbrush, it's just a bare banks rock lake. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking earlier about how they can get up there on like a bluff wall and they can spawn and stuff like that. But most of the time they want to do it shallow. That's the thing.
Right.
They want to move up shallow and they want to get up there around some form of cover and where they and honestly with the buckbrush they'd feel more secure. They'd feel more safe
Yeah.
because if they have a
So
big old pile of buckbrush there and they got a whole big group of shad, they're going to feel more secure. They're going to feel more safe, and that's going to just it's just going
right.
to be a better place for them to spawn.
Right. So, are the shad looking? You're talking about moving up shallow. Are they looking for more of a brushy, flat type place? Say like the back of Zilpo here. Say if the water's up a couple of feet from Summer Pool, and you take the back of the flats there where you've got all that brush and vine and stuff like that. Is that the kind of thing that that the shad really go for if they've got the chance?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where they want to be. It's a place where they feel secure, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a good place for them to get up there and spawn because they have a whole bunch of cover to do it around,
All
and
right.
when there's a million shad in a group up there, it's just really a better place for them to spawn compared to like going in the back of say like going in the back of Caney where you still got a bunch of stumps and things like that, but they're still really in open water around stumps, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
when you get back up in bushes, it's hard to get around for predator fish and things like that, and they're kind of locked into a centralized area when they're up there in the
Right.
bushes, and it's just a better place for them to spawn.
I'd be curious to if there was even such a thing and you had access to see like the records from where they do their electrofishing here at Cave Run over the years,
Mm-hmm.
just to see what the numbers were between bait fish and game fish, 20 or 30 years ago versus what they're seeing now, and the change, especially I just really be curious to see what that is. You'd imagine it'd have to be better than it was then. I mean, there's too many good fish being caught here now.
Yeah, absolutely. With the grass now on Cave Run, that's a whole different ball game on the shad spawn.
Mm-hmm.
They'll still get out there, they'll get up in the bushes, but also a really good pattern is fishing the grass. And the post
Mm-hmm.
spawn when the shad are up there spawning, it's a really good pattern to fish. If you can find the groups of shad out there, you can absolutely have a ball doing it in the grass.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, talking about finding these shad spawning and these balls of bait fish, what are you? Of course, we don't have any kind of video here, but describe it the best you can on your electronic setup. What you're looking for if you're trying to find that ball of shad. Granted, you can see them visually if the water's pretty clear, I guess, and you kind of know where they should be. But if you're just graphing around, what are you looking for on your graph as far as like when you're thinking, oh, look, there's a big ball of shad right there.
So basically, what like a ball of shad, looks like, it's going to be basically the same thing on each of your screens. On your 2D sonar, your down scan, and your side imaging. They're all basically going to look the same. But all it is, I'll specifically mention the 2D and the down imaging. 'Cause that's the easiest way to for sure know if it's a ball of shad for me. And basically, what it looks like is it'll be just a blob. It'll just be
Mm-hmm.
like a big blob
Right.
up in the water column. Most of the time, they're not going to be on the bottom, and most of the time they're going to be suspended up in the water column. So if you just see a blob come up on your screen that's up off the bottom and off the surface of the water, that's more than likely going to be a ball of shad, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to look the same on every brand of unit, whether you have a Lowrance, Garmin, Humminbird, whatever you have. It's all going to look the same. You're just looking for a big blob of shad, and that's all it is. They just group up in a big, basically like the same thing you see on like a National Geographic show with like what the fish do in the ocean. They they
Yeah.
they group up, power in numbers, I guess, and
Yeah.
they just group up and they group up in a big ball, and you'll just see them down there suspended up off the bottom.
Okay. Okay. Um, Now, like moving a little bit, maybe past the shad spawn, like even summertime fishing. Uh, do you try to locate shad even then, or are you looking for fish more on cover and that kind of thing?
That really depends on the lake because Cave Run's a different animal. Most of the time,
Yeah.
most of the time on Cave Run, I'm completely basically all year I'm fishing just completely structure oriented, whether it's grass or it's bushes or it's a brush pile. Basically, those three things. That's basically all I'm fishing. Stumps sometimes up in the spring. I'll make a big old run up the river and get rambunctious and go up there and throw spinnerbait or square bill. But basically all year on K Run I'm fishing, I'm just structure oriented. And but if I was going to like this year specifically, I'm going to be going to Lake Hartwell in South Carolina. I'll be doing that in
Sure.
the last weekend of June through the first weekend in July, and
Yeah.
that's one of the tournaments I'm hoping to have live scope before then. But that's going to be one of the tournaments where I'll be basically looking around. I'll be fishing brush piles, but mostly I'll be looking around for suspended fish and suspended balls of bait because the bass on Hartwell, there's so many like big humps and long points and things like that. If you look at it on Navionics, you'll just be absolutely bumfuzzled at what it looks like because there's so many humps and
Yeah,
long
because
points and islands and all that stuff.
everywhere looks like there's going to be fish on it.
Exactly, but what
There's
the
not
fish
like
do,
like here, like you were talking about Cave Run. I mean, there's areas you look at Cave Run, you're like, well, there's no fish there. But you take a lake like that, you're like, well, there's probably fish there, and then oh, well, there's probably fish there, and there can't be fish over every square inch of it. So yeah, yeah.
yeah. But the fish there, I'm gonna be fishing mainly for spotted bass. They have really good spotted bass fishing there, and they get out and they suspend out deep. And what
Hmm.
I'll be doing is I'll be throwing a swim bait, maybe even I might even throw an Alabama rig. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'll definitely be throwing a fluke a lot. Top water's a really, really good pattern. It's probably the most well known one. Getting out basically in the middle of the lake and looking for schooling fish, throwing a top water. So that's gonna be really fun.
Hmm.
But it's gonna be cool just watching. And basically, I'm gonna be looking for shad. But
Right.
I mean, on top of it, I'll be looking around brush piles, and I'm sure I'll find myself running all the way up a creek until I can't even get the big motor around in there. I'll be taking a trolling motor up there, but
Right.
it's a really diverse fishery. You can go up there, like I just said, and look for largemouth in a creek, but the main pattern is going to be out there fishing, for spots, suspended fish, things like that, with a swim bait or a fluke or a topwater.
Cool. Hey, back to the shad spawn. For folks that are thinking of coming to Cave Run here, um, and I know it has a lot to do with the weather and stuff, but basically, what month or time of year, or when in this spring, and what water temp are you looking for if you're wanting to fish a shad spawn here? When could you tell folks it would be probably the best time to come here?
Basically the water temperature rule that I follow is once it consistently the main thing is here is consistently. Sometimes we'll
Hmm.
have weekends here in April where it's like 85 degrees or something
Oh
ridiculous,
yeah,
and the water
sure.
temperature will raise from like 52 to 63 or something ridiculous like that. But if once you start seeing consistent, like during the night, seeing consistent 65-degree water,
Hmm.
that's when it'll really start kind of moving along. But
Right.
once we get consistent 70-degree water every single night, that's when I know for sure, without a doubt, that there's going to be a shad spawn somewhere. You just have to go and find it. And that's going to be that's going to be around the last weekend in April, really, really from April to May.
Yeah.
That's when it
Yeah.
really hits consistently 65 to 70 degrees.
Hmm.
Basically, the last of April through the beginning of May. So, like, you have
Hmm.
like a 3 or 4 week period there,
Of course,
where you can just about bet on a shad spawn happening.
I know you're not necessarily a musky guy, but that probably has to. Do you think that probably has to activate the musky fishing pretty good too when
Oh,
all those shad
absolutely.
are moving around? And I guess even probably all these game fish, whether it be musky, catfish, or crappie, when you got these big groups of shad moving around. And trying to spawn and so forth and so on. That I guess that would probably be a rule of thumb for just about any fishing here at Cave Run. Wouldn't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Any game fish, like you said, whether it be a bass or a muskie, a crappie, catfish, anything like that that feeds on shad, they're going to be up there. They're going to be right up there with the bass, and they're going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be looking for the shad up there spawning because it's basically just a really easy meal. It's just a buffet. Really, they can go up there and
Right.
eat, and they know that there's going to be a million shad up there in a group spawning. So it's any kind of game fish is going to be up there with the bass.
Mhm. Well, Evan, have you got anything else to add to our shad spawn? And then I'd like to talk a little bit. I know you said you had a tournament coming up here in a week or two and everything. So if you got anything else to add about the shad spawn, do that, and then we'll move right on into your upcoming tournament here.
Basically, with the shad spawn, just look for 65 to 70 degree water, especially 70, and really just, put a white bait on, a white top water, a white swim jig, spinner bait, something like that, even a buzz bait, just anything like that, and go up shallow and cover water. That's basically, keep it as simple as possible. That's really the biggest tip I
Are
can give.
you on the shad spawn when you're looking for shallow water? Are you talking about more going to like the backs of creeks or just anywhere that you can find a decent shallow area, even if it's out on the main lake on a little flat or something like that?
Really, any kind of shallow waters. But I guess kind of thinking about it, the back of a creek is really good. But if you can find, a big, like a shallow flat or something like that comes up on the main lake,
Mm-hmm.
and those fish have access to in the morning or like at night or in the morning, they can move up there with the shad. They can eat all the shad up there and feed. And then in the middle of the day, when it gets hot, they can move back out deep on a brush pile or grass edge or something like that. So that's
Okay, awesome.
kind of what I think about it. But
Awesome.
yeah, we got a tournament coming up. I think it's the fifth stop of the Eastern Kentucky SAF High School Trail. It's on Lake Cumberland, coming up February 13th, and it's gonna be a cold one. It's
Yeah, yeah,
I,
buddy.
I honestly, I'd absolutely love to go fish it, but I'm about positive that they have to cancel it if it's going to be that cold. Because they're giving they're giving something ridiculous,
Yeah,
like 10 degrees, like
8 or
in the
10
morning.
degrees at 8 or 10 degrees at takeoff, man. That's pretty bitter. I'll just tell you.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. If they don't cancel it, I'll be the first boat in the parking lot that
Oh
morning.
yeah.
But
But
I'm
but
kind of looking for them to cancel it.
even that cold though, those smallmouth down there, they'll kind of kick it. They'll that won't kill the bite. I mean, those
Oh
fish will
no,
bite when it's like that.
they'll definitely eat. They'll definitely eat. That's
Yeah.
for sure. That's for sure.
But they talk about that. But these guys up north, they fishing that kind of stuff. I mean, unless the lakes just froze over, those guys are fishing. I mean, because I know too many of them. I mean, they just, especially where we're in kind of the musky deal here. We get a lot of these guys from up north, and I mean, that's if they can get in the water, they're fishing. Doesn't matter if it's 8 or 10 degrees. So I guess it's all on what you're accustomed to. I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, all right then, Ev. We'll wrap it up today, man, and I guess what coming up here. I guess that's not this weekend, but the next weekend is the kickoff to the Elite Series down
Yep.
there on the St. John. So I'm excited about that, and who knows? Maybe we can round up someone that we know. That's going to be fishing it and kind of get a little preview or something of it. So we'll just have to see about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can try and get somebody on here. I'd say somebody will.
All right, Ev. We're going to wrap it up here, son. We'll talk to you later.
All right. See you, buddy.
See you, buddy. All right, folks, and that's going to wrap it up. And as we like to say here, just get outdoors with Hook Outdoors. Stop in and see us this spring. We'll be opening back up for the season here pretty soon. And give a listen to one of our sponsors here in this ad spot. It's our first ad spot, and we're pretty proud of it. So you folks have a good day. Stay warm over the next week or two, and hopefully spring will get here pretty soon. Thank y'all.
The only sound more enjoyable than the plop of your lure breaking on the surface of the water is the high-pitched squeal of your reel as you pull in your first bass of the day. To help ensure the first catch on your line is a fish, try the SB57 by Bill Lewis, the creators of Rattle Trap. The SB57 features a wide coffin-shaped bill that enables the bait to easily drive through brush, stumps, rocks, and more. Plus, its computer chip construction gives it that tight wiggle you and your next bass are looking for. The SB57 is Mark Daniels Jr.'s signature lure and is available at Hook Outdoors Tackle Shop, located on Cave Run Lake, or rattletrap.com.